In a courtroom in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the air was thick with anticipation as an 81-year-old veteran, now wearing his Bronze Star proudly over his chest, entered the room. Charles Avery, dressed in a neatly pressed blazer, walked slowly but steadily toward the front, drawing the attention of everyone present. His presence was commanding, the kind of calm strength born from years of service where silence often meant survival. Judge Marianne Jacobs, adjusting her glasses, promptly ordered him to remove the medal, declaring, "This is a courtroom, not a parade." Avery, however, remained unfazed. "This medal is part of who I am," he stated evenly. With a quiet resolve, he chose to represent himself in a legal dispute that was anything but ordinary. The case at hand involved a property developer, Jonathan Pierce, who sought to seize a 6-foot stretch of land behind Avery's home. Land Avery had cultivated with peach trees for nearly 20 years. The developer's lawyer, Michael Thompson, presented what seemed like airtight evidence using GPS coordinates, photos, and surveys. Yet, Avery calmly laid out his defense, showing the court documents proving the land had been in his care under Oklahoma's adverse possession law for over 2 decades. Avery's poised and methodical approach shifted the courtroom's atmosphere. His experience in law, combined with his military background, gave him the strength to question the legal procedures and challenge the developer's claims. In a stunning turn of events, Avery not only held his ground but exposed the flaws in the developer's evidence. Forcing a judicial review, his unwavering stance on justice and his profound respect for the law led to the land being awarded back to him. A victory that extended beyond property rights to the broader principle of fairness. In the heart of a Tulsa courtroom, an 81-year-old veteran walked in with a quiet presence that commanded attention. Charles Avery, dressed in a neat gray blazer, stepped carefully toward the front, wearing his Bronze Star with pride. The room, which had been filled with murmurs and quiet chatter, fell into a hush as people straightened in their seats, sensing that something important was unfolding. Judge Marianne Jacobs, adjusting her glasses, quickly snapped to attention and ordered, "Remove the medal, or face a contempt fine. This is a courtroom, not a parade." Avery, without a hint of hesitation, looked at his medal, then back at the judge. "This medal is part of who I am," he replied calmly, his voice unwavering. Avery's calm response, though quiet, began to shift the tone in the room. What followed was a case unlike any other. Avery, representing himself in a civil property dispute, was pitted against Jonathan Pierce, a property developer, who sought to seize a 6-foot strip of land behind Avery's home, a strip Avery had cared for and cultivated with peach trees for nearly 2 decades. Pierce's lawyer, Michael Thompson, made his case with technical jargon, surveys, and drone photos that seemed foolproof. Yet, Avery, without a lawyer at his side, calmly presented evidence of his long-standing claim to the land, showing the court documents that proved he had maintained it for over 20 years. The judge, once firm in her stance, now appeared to soften. Avery, with the quiet strength of someone who had spent years in Vietnam and later in legal offices working tirelessly for veterans, didn't argue loudly or with theatrics. Instead, he presented facts, showing photos, tax records, and affidavits that substantiated his claim under Oklahoma's adverse possession law. He wasn't just fighting for land, he was asserting his right to be heard. The courtroom shifted as Avery exposed flaws in the developer's case. There were no amendments to the boundary line, and the zoning permits were invalid. His legal mind was sharp and his approach meticulous. Avery's stand wasn't just about protecting his trees, it was about challenging the procedures that had been overlooked and dismissed by those who thought they could push him aside. As the case progressed, the tension grew. The opposing attorney, Thompson, tried to undermine Avery's argument, but Avery remained calm. His quiet yet firm rebuttals began to turn the tide. When the judge reviewed the documents Avery had presented, she confirmed that something was amiss with the developer's claims. The boundary shift was not just an administrative oversight, It appeared to be misrepresentation. Avery's meticulous research, which included a request for a judicial review of the developer's zoning permits, revealed that the legal process had been neglected. He raised the issue of a forged signature on the 2005 survey and pushed the court to investigate further. This was a bold move, and the courtroom was stunned into silence. After the judge's initial response, it was clear that Avery had gained the upper hand. The developer, Pierce, and his attorney were left scrambling. Avery, who had never once raised his voice, had managed to expose the cracks in the developer's case with nothing more than calm deliberation. The judge issued an injunction on further construction and ordered a formal review of the zoning permits. Avery's legal acumen, combined with his moral integrity, had overturned the situation. It wasn't just a legal victory. It was a triumph of truth and responsibility over corporate interests. In the final moments of the case, as Avery stood in front of the judge, he was approached by a law student, Isaiah Winslow, who had been observing the proceedings. Winslow, visibly moved by Avery's approach to the law, expressed his gratitude for the lesson he had just witnessed. Avery's calm and calculated handling of the case had shown him that law wasn't just about knowing statutes. It was about standing firm when others tried to erase your rights. The young man's recognition of Avery's efforts underscored the real impact of his actions, not just in the courtroom, but in inspiring others to fight for justice in their own lives. Outside the courthouse, Avery's quiet walk to freedom was met with a small but meaningful round of applause from the community. Avery had won not only the land but also the respect of his peers, neighbors, and the next generation of legal minds. As the day ended, he returned to his peach trees, where his granddaughter greeted him. With a quiet smile, he assured her that while the trees had been cut down, they would grow back, just like the justice he had fought for. The case was about more than property. It was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful victories are the ones fought quietly and with principle. Through his unwavering dedication to truth, Avery had reminded the world that justice still mattered. In the quiet courtroom of Tulsa, Oklahoma, the morning started with an unexpected twist. Charles Avery, an 81-year-old veteran, walked into court wearing his Bronze Star pinned to his chest. As he entered, his demeanor was calm, but his presence was undeniable. The glint of the medal caught the light, a symbol of his service and sacrifice. Yet the judge, Mary Ann Jacobs, quickly ordered him to remove it, saying, "This is a courtroom, not a parade." Avery, however, did not comply. Instead, he responded quietly but firmly, "This medal is part of who I am." His calm assertion of identity left the room momentarily stunned. The judge's order was ignored, and the veteran did not back down. This was only the beginning of what turned out to be a truly remarkable courtroom battle. Avery, who had served in Vietnam and faced many struggles in his lifetime, was now representing himself in a civil dispute. The case was a property dispute where a developer, Jonathan Pierce, claimed ownership of a small strip of land behind Avery's home, land that Avery had nurtured for nearly 2 decades, planting and tending to peach trees. The legal team representing Pierce, led by Michael Thompson, had a well-prepared case, with drone photos, GPS coordinates, and legal jargon that suggested Avery had no claim to the land. At first, it seemed like an open and shut case, but Avery's quiet and unassuming demeanor proved to be his strength. He methodically presented his argument, requesting the court to review the chain of title, particularly between 1992 and 2003, a period where crucial records were seemingly missing. Avery's unshakable resolve and quiet confidence caught the attention of everyone in the room. He presented documents showing that, under Oklahoma's adverse possession law, he had maintained this strip of land for more than 20 years, paying property taxes and cultivating the land as if it were his own. His argument was supported by photographs, affidavits from neighbors, and years of tax records, documents that proved he had taken care of the land long before the developer's team ever arrived. Despite his lack of formal legal representation, Avery spoke with clarity, referencing his law degree and his experience as a legal advisor for veterans. This quiet but powerful revelation startled the opposing side. The opposing lawyer, Thompson, was left to argue semantics, questioning the relevance of Avery's evidence. But Avery stood firm, methodically walking the judge through the legalities. The turning point came when Avery presented a hand-drawn map he had prepared, showing the original survey done in 1996 and comparing it to a newer survey from 2005, which showed a shift in the boundary line, one that had never been communicated to Avery or his neighbors. The room was stunned into silence as Avery exposed what could only be described as a procedural flaw. He argued that the zoning changes were not properly filed, and he requested a judicial review. His argument was so strong that Judge Jacobs, who had initially been tough and dismissive, began to soften. The judge admitted her mistake in issuing the original fine against Avery, recognizing that his presence in the courtroom, wearing his medal, had been misjudged as an attempt to show off. But Avery was not there for show, he was there for justice. He had fought for his country, and now, he was fighting for what was rightfully his. The final bombshell came when Avery revealed that the permits granted to the developer were likely invalid, based on an outdated parcel number and missing variances. The developer, Pierce, whose confidence had once been unshakable, was visibly shaken, and the judge ordered an immediate freeze on construction on the disputed land. As the case concluded, Avery's quiet strength and unyielding belief in justice had won the day. The courtroom was filled with respect for the 81-year-old veteran who had not only defended his land but also reminded everyone in that room of what true justice looked like, one that wasn't about who had the loudest voice or the most money, but about standing firm in the truth. The impact of Avery's victory didn't end in the courtroom. A law student, Isaiah Winslow, who had been observing the case, stood up after the hearing and publicly thanked Avery, acknowledging that his actions in the courtroom had taught him more about law than any textbook or lecture ever could. The quiet strength and determination displayed by Avery resonated beyond the case, inspiring others to stand their ground in the pursuit of justice, even when the odds seemed stacked against them. Avery's story became a symbol not just of personal victory, but of the power of truth, the importance of standing firm, and the quiet dignity that can change the world. The case was covered by national media, and letters poured in from all over the country, praising Avery for his courage and reminding everyone that sometimes, the most profound victories are won through quiet determination rather than loud confrontation. In a quiet courthouse in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the tension on that Thursday morning was palpable. But no one could have predicted that the catalyst for change would come from an 81-year-old man wearing his Bronze Star. Charles Avery, dressed in a gray blazer and polished brown shoes, entered the courtroom slowly, his every step measured and deliberate. The medal on his chest caught the light, and as he moved toward the front of the room, it was as if the air itself shifted. Those in the room, though mostly unfamiliar with his name, straightened in their seats, sensing that this man was not just any ordinary individual. Judge Marianne Jacobs, known for her strict adherence to courtroom decorum, wasted no time. She adjusted her glasses, looked up, and immediately commanded Avery to remove the medal, or he would face a contempt fine. "This is a courtroom, not a parade," she declared. But Charles Avery did not flinch. He simply looked down at the medal for a brief moment, then looked back at the bench and calmly replied, "This medal is part of who I am." His response wasn't defiant, but it carried an air of quiet dignity, one forged in the crucible of his years of service. Avery was there for a property dispute that had dragged on for months. The case revolved around a strip of land behind his modest home, land that he had maintained and planted with peach trees for over 2 decades. A property developer, Jonathan Pierce, sought to seize this land, claiming that the strip fell within the boundaries of his development project. The developer's lawyer, Michael Thompson, presented evidence that seemed airtight, using drone images, GPS coordinates, and technical jargon to back up the claim. Yet Avery, standing in the same room as the high-priced lawyer and the judge, made it clear that he would not back down. "I'll be representing myself," Avery said confidently, stunning everyone in the courtroom. At first, the young lawyer seemed dismissive of the elderly man's decision. He likely believed this would be a simple case to win, given the complex evidence on their side. However, Avery's calm demeanor, coupled with his knowledge of the law, quickly made the opposing counsel uneasy. When asked to present his defense, Avery didn't rely on legal jargon or flashy exhibits. Instead, he began with an essential request: for the court to review the petition's chain of title, specifically the period between 1992 and 2003. He knew there was something missing, something that the developers had either overlooked or intentionally omitted. Avery presented documents from the Tulsa County Recorder's Office, including a deed transfer and an easement agreement from 1998 that granted him the right to maintain that strip of land. While the developer's lawyer, Thompson, tried to dismiss these documents, Avery's sharp legal mind caught every small inconsistency in the opposing party's claims. Avery wasn't arguing based on ownership. He was asserting that under Oklahoma's adverse possession statute, he had established a valid claim to the land by maintaining it, paying property taxes, and taking care of it for over 20 years. Thompson tried to laugh off Avery's defense, but it was clear that the elderly man had done his homework. Avery's approach was simple. He wasn't claiming ownership through the easement, but instead highlighting that he had been the one caring for the land, while Pierce had done nothing to contest it for years. Avery's evidence, including photos from as far back as 2002, neighbor affidavits, and 10 years of tax records, painted a clear picture of the land he had maintained as his own. The case took a surprising turn when Avery questioned the ethics of the property developer's zoning permit, revealing that a boundary change had occurred in 2005 without any public notification or hearing. Avery had even consulted a handwriting analyst and discovered a possible forgery of the signature on the 2005 survey document. When asked by the judge to clarify his point, Avery calmly explained that the issue wasn't just about the land but about people taking what wasn't theirs without consequence. He challenged the developer's assumptions and highlighted the deeper issue of corruption in property dealings. What followed was a courtroom full of whispers and nervous glances as Judge Jacobs ordered an immediate review of the zoning amendments. The developer, Pierce, began to crack under the pressure of the mounting evidence, and his lawyer was forced to request a continuance. But Avery stood firm, determined that this case, which had already dragged on for months, would not be delayed any further. Avery's ability to handle the case with such poise and knowledge earned the respect of everyone in the room. His granddaughter, who had been quietly watching the proceedings, even ran up to him, asking, "Grandpa, did you win?" Avery's response was simple but profound. "I didn't win, baby. I held my ground." In that moment, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about doing what was right, regardless of the odds. As the day unfolded, more people began to recognize that this case wasn't just about land disputes. It was about integrity, justice, and the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity. Avery's quiet strength and his unwavering commitment to justice had already made an impact. His story would ripple across the community, inspiring others to hold their ground and never back down when faced with injustice. It wasn't about headlines or big speeches. It was about a man who stood up for what was right, and in doing so, reminded everyone that justice, when pursued with patience and diligence, could still prevail. In the hallowed halls of the courthouse in Tulsa, Oklahoma, an unassuming figure entered the room, commanding quiet attention from all who saw him. Charles Avery, an 81-year-old veteran, walked with quiet dignity, his bronze star pinned proudly to his chest. The medal gleamed under the courtroom lights as he moved forward, his presence unmistakable and powerful. Judge Marianne Jacobs, adjusting her glasses, directed him to remove the medal, citing courtroom decorum. But Avery, with a calmness that surprised even the judge, responded that the medal was a part of who he was, as integral as his name. His unwavering response set the stage for a courtroom battle that would defy expectations and redefine what justice truly meant. The case at hand was about more than just a strip of land. Avery had spent nearly 2 decades cultivating peach trees on a 6-foot-wide strip of land behind his modest home. But now, a property developer named Jonathan Pierce, with the backing of his lawyer, Michael Thompson, sought to seize that land, claiming it was part of his property based on a recent survey. With confidence, Thompson presented an array of technical jargon, maps, GPS coordinates, and even drone photos to make his case seem airtight. The court seemed ready to accept it. However, Avery, representing himself, calmly requested to present his evidence. What followed was nothing short of a master class in legal understanding. Avery, in his quiet and unassuming way, revealed documents that challenged the core of the developer's claims. He provided a deed transfer from the original developer to Pierce's company and a 1998 easement that granted him access to maintain the very strip of land in question. This revelation alone shifted the courtroom's dynamic. But Avery wasn't finished. He then cited Oklahoma's adverse possession law, arguing that he had maintained and paid taxes on the land for over 20 years, which was enough to establish ownership. This was not just a fight for property. It was a fight for respect. For acknowledging that a man who had served his country deserved recognition for his contributions. Not just in war, but in his everyday life. The defense's attorney, Michael Thompson, responded with a mixture of arrogance and dismissal. He questioned Avery's claim, but Avery remained poised and unflinching. He explained that he wasn't claiming ownership through the easement but rather asserting that, under the law, the land had become his due to the continuous and undisputed care he had given it for 2 decades. Avery's legal knowledge, gained through personal hardship rather than formal practice, began to unsettle those in the room. It became clear that he had not just studied law out of necessity, but out of a deep sense of justice and moral duty. He wasn't simply seeking to protect his land. He was seeking to right the wrongs that often went unnoticed in legal battles. Avery wasn't just representing himself. He was representing everyone who had ever been marginalized or overlooked. As the hearing progressed, the judge, initially rigid and bound by decorum, began to soften. She reviewed the evidence Avery presented, including photographs dating back to 2002 and statements from Avery's neighbors attesting to his care for the land. It was clear. Avery had come prepared, not with flashy arguments or grandiose gestures, but with quiet determination and a steadfast belief in what was right. In response to a question about his legal background, Avery revealed that he had worked as a legal advisor for Veterans Affairs and had helped countless veterans fight for their benefits. Even when the system had failed them, a shift began to take place in the room. What had started as a routine property dispute had turned into a poignant lesson in perseverance, justice, and the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity. Avery's claim wasn't just about land ownership. It was about the rights of individuals to protect what was theirs, even when the system worked against them. The tension in the courtroom grew palpable as the case continued, but Avery's calm demeanor never wavered. By the end of the proceedings, the judge ruled in Avery's favor, temporarily halting the developer's construction activities and ordering further investigations into the legality of the zoning changes. Avery's victory wasn't just a legal win. It was a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you. But Avery's story didn't end there. As he left the courtroom, a quiet round of applause began from the audience, and a sense of respect filled the air. It wasn't just for his legal victory, but for the courage and integrity he had shown. The applause echoed through the courthouse, and Avery, without a need for fanfare, simply walked away. In the days that followed, news outlets began to cover his case. Avery's story, a quiet victory over greed and bureaucracy, was shared widely. It resonated deeply with people across the country who saw in him not just a man fighting for his land, but a symbol of the enduring power of justice. Even in the most unlikely of places, his story reminded us all that sometimes the most powerful victories are not the loudest, but the quiet, steadfast ones that are won with integrity, patience, and unwavering dedication to what is right. In a courtroom in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 81-year-old Charles Avery entered with a quiet but resolute dignity, his bronze star pinned proudly to his chest. His presence, steady and composed, commanded the room, and though no one initially recognized his name, something about him made people sit up straighter. The judge, Celeste Grantham, noticing the medal, ordered Avery to remove it, deeming it a personal item that had no place in her courtroom. But Avery, without hesitation, responded, "This medal is part of who I am. I wear it the way I wear my name." The simplicity of his words shifted the tone in the room, leaving the judge, and everyone present, to pause. It wasn't just about the medal, it was about respect, dignity, and standing your ground. Avery wasn't seeking attention, he wasn't trying to create a spectacle. He was merely asserting his right to be treated with the respect he had earned. The case was about a property dispute over a strip of land Avery had maintained for over 2 decades, where he had planted peach trees. A property developer, Jonathan Pierce, was trying to seize the land. Citing a recent survey, Avery, representing himself, calmly presented his evidence, showing that the land had been his for years through an easement and consistent care, backed by tax records and affidavits from neighbors. It wasn't just a legal battle, it was a fight for recognition and the right to protect what he had earned with his own hands, even when those in power tried to take it from him. What followed was a lesson in courage, preparation, and the power of standing firm for what is right. The young lawyer for the developer, Michael Thompson, was quick to dismiss Avery, but the calm and measured way Avery presented his case forced everyone to listen. When Avery spoke of his work as a legal advisor to veterans, his quiet strength began to reverberate through the room. This wasn't just a property case, it was a battle of integrity. His determination, not only to defend his land but to hold people accountable, left a lasting impact on Judge Grantham. By the end of the hearing, she had rescinded the fine for the medal and acknowledged Avery's rightful claim to the land. What started as a seemingly trivial property dispute turned into a profound lesson about justice, perseverance, and the quiet strength that often goes unnoticed. But Avery's victory wasn't just a legal one, it was an emotional victory that resonated with everyone in the courtroom. His determination reminded everyone present of the importance of standing your ground, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. In a world that often rewards noise and bravado, Avery's quiet confidence and preparation proved that sometimes the strongest victories are the ones that don't need to be loudly declared, they just need to be fought with truth, integrity, and a steady hand. His story didn't just end in the courtroom, it spread like wildfire. It became a symbol of the enduring power of truth and justice. A story that touched the hearts of many. Avery wasn't just an old man standing up for his land, he was a beacon of resilience in a world that often overlooks the quiet voices of those who fight not for attention, but for what's right. So, if this story resonates with you, take a moment to reflect on what it truly means to stand your ground. Leave a comment and share your thoughts on the power of quiet strength. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more stories that remind us of the true essence of justice and the strength it takes to hold on to it, no matter the odds.